Love You podcast with Evan Marc Katz, where you will learn everything you need to know about dating, relationships, men, and sex from a man's point of view. We got a lot to cover when it comes to bad dating advice, and I want to dive right in quickly. Continuing on what we learned in the first half. Next piece of bad dating advice: you should meet men as quickly as possible. All right. This is the most popular advice. I just read a book by a friend of mine the other day. I try to keep up with my friends' books. It's a pretty small industry. And this was her advice: meet men as quickly as possible. You don't want a pen pal. I get that. And again, it's a very normal, common, popular, very masculine point of view. My theory, if you go Google my TED Talk, is that men look for speed, women in general look for comfort, and there's a sweet spot. There's a point on the Venn diagram where both people get what they want. Problem, if everybody's going for speed, right? Tinder, swipe right, you look hot, let's meet, text. What happens? You end up going on blind dates with total strangers. You might as well write your number on a bathroom wall and say for a good time call. That is the qualifications to meet. You're cute, you have a pulse, let's meet. So there's no screening process. Imagine a company. I tell women that they're the CEOs of their own love life. Imagine a company, right? You're Bill Gates at Microsoft, and anybody who wants to interview at Microsoft could just show up at his door. There's no screening, there's no HR. You just show up as quickly as possible because we don't want to waste time screening. Well, it means you're going to have a lot of unqualified applicants showing up at the door of Microsoft, and that's what happens. That's what I discovered after a lot of dating, right? 300 dates. I decided I wanted to move slower. Everybody was moving fast. If everybody was going to zig, I was going to zag. That's where I came up with the 222 rule, right? Couple emails on the dating site, couple emails off the dating site, phone call, date. Whole thing takes place in less than a week. But at least you know that you're going out with someone that you kind of sort of like and you kind of sort of trust, right? So people who go really fast are usually assuming the worst in their dates. In a way, they're almost setting themselves up for the worst. How can I move as quickly as possible so as not to waste time, so as not to get hurt? Let's meet for a half hour in a plastic chair at Starbucks and let's see if there's chemistry. And if there is, then maybe we'll come back for more. To me, that's a really soul-sucking way of dating. I'd rather go on one great date on a Friday night with someone that I've been talking to for a week on the phone than to go on 4 blind coffee dates with strangers. Your mileage may vary. If you like that revolving door of going out with strangers, God bless you. But to me, my dating life changed when I decided to make each date count and get excited and invested in each date, rather than setting myself up for the lowest common denominator, easiest date with a total stranger, the sort of meet and greet interview. I've never made out with anybody at Starbucks. I doubt you have either. What's the point of a date if you can't make out at the end of it? Next piece of bad advice: you should make first phone calls and first dates short. This is another example of trying to set yourself up for failure. And I don't know if it's from the rules, the idea that women have to make themselves scarce and play games and leave him wanting more. And listen, if you and I are having a great night and you're like, I gotta go, but you're killing our momentum here. You think I'm gonna get sick of you because I talked to you for another hour? That's game playing. That's not what this is about. Good dating is about making an authentic connection and being free and seeing where things go. So when someone says, I got to make a first phone call short, remember, according to me, I'm only one guy, that phone call that you set up from the guy online is your first date. Right? This is your first date. So when you meet in person, it feels like a second date. But that phone call is your first date. Why would you do a 15-minute phone call? You wouldn't go on a 15-minute first date. That's surfacey stuff. If you are having a great phone call, stay on the phone. Keep it going. If you're on a great date and you love talking to each other, stay until the bar closes. You're not trying to play games. You're not trying to make yourself scarce. You're trying to connect. And forging a rare connection, we've all dated. You know how hard it is. So when something good is going, you don't sabotage it because your perception is that you have to make men want you more by cutting things short. It's actually quite the opposite. As anybody who's ever had a 3-hour phone call with someone that was amazing, or a 6-hour first date could attest to, that's so much more superior than the alternative of willfully stopping a date when you're having a good time. Similar piece of advice: play it cool on the first date. That's another thing that's sort of based on theory rather than practice. In fact, there's studies that show that men and women respond to things differently on a date. Women really don't like a guy who's a puppy dog on the first date. The guy who throws himself, oh my God, I can't stop thinking about you, you're so beautiful, I can't wait to have a future. The guy who comes on way too strong like that, women do tend to pull away from. A guy who's really eager, they prefer the guy who's a little aloof and confident, and she doesn't exactly know where she stands with him to some degree. She values him more. Men work the opposite way around. Right? The woman who's aloof, where you don't know where you stand, we hate that. All we want to know on a date is whether you like us. Right? Are you attracted? Are you having fun? Can I see you again? Am I going to get a kiss at the end of the night? That's all we care about. So when you play it cool and you sit on your hands and you are just la-di-da-di-da, right? Not acting particularly interested in this guy, talking about your career or whatever, so this movie that I saw. No, he wants you to look him in the eye and touch him on the hand and touch him on the knee and treat him like he's the most fascinating person in the entire world. He wants you to laugh at his jokes and compliment him on his shirt or his shoes or his funny business story. Right? He wants to know that he's doing a good job. Playing it cool is literally the worst thing you can do on a date. Now remember, you're not kissing his ass, you're responding to him. Right? If he's not being nice to you, I wouldn't throw myself at him. But men are putting on a show. This is in my book, Why He Disappeared. Men are putting on a show, and we just really want you to applaud. So playing it cool is one of the worst things you could do on a date, no matter what any other dating coach tells you. Similarly, don't kiss on the first date. Kiss on the first date. This is also in Why He Disappeared. Right? Men disappear because they don't feel good around you. If I planned a date, right, picked you up, picked up the check, engaged in conversation, came up with another bar to take you to, right, the whole song and dance, I courted you. And at the end of the night, I'm attracted to you and I go to make a move and you just give me this or this or the, I'm sorry, I'm uncomfortable, I don't do that. What you haven't considered is how he feels. Now, everybody's entitled to have her boundaries, and I'm not saying you're wrong for having your boundaries. I want you to just understand the consequences to those boundaries is that you're going to make this guy who is having a great time, who is attracted to you, feel confused, embarrassed, stupid. All right? That was not your intention. You liked him. You just had this rule that you don't kiss guys because you don't want to send the wrong message. All right? The problem is your rule is going to alienate the guy that you took out that you want to see again. So you can say, well, the right man will respect my rule. Well, the right man might be really embarrassed about taking you out on another date, going to make a move, and getting the cheek again and getting rejected. You can only imagine what it would be like if you leaned in to kiss a guy and he rejected you. How would you feel? And a lot of people haven't considered that. It's very embarrassing to make a move and get turned down. Even if you give him an explanation around it, you're still rejecting him. So to me, the best path of least resistance is if you like the guy and you want to see him again and he tries to kiss you, kiss him back like you mean it. Doesn't mean you have to have sex with him. It just means you're reciprocating his affection because men are driven by that affection in a way that's almost their reward for taking you out and being a gentleman on the rest of the date. So don't expect that a good date or the right guy doesn't make a first move. Right? If you make up this rule that you don't kiss on the first date, you're going to end up inadvertently alienating a lot of really good guys, whether you think they're really good guys or not. I'm telling you that they are. You should never talk about relationships or dating. That's what other people say. That's not true in the least. Right? Talking about real things forges a real connection. It forges real intimacy. There was that famous New York Times article about the 36 questions that you could ask that would help someone fall in love with you. And they're increasingly intimate questions. Now, that would be a weird way to go on a date, is to go with a questionnaire. But people bond over the sharing of information, talking about my father who passed away, talking about the girlfriend who broke my heart in 2003, talking about the silly things that are going on Match.com. If you put that in a box and you just have to talk about the weather and your hobbies and your favorite restaurants, you're not really getting anywhere. People want to make a human connection. Right? The human connection is talking about relationships with friends and family and exes. And as long as you can tell these stories without being needy, oh my God, I miss him so much, well, that's not good. But if you could tell the story, right, intimate stories about dating and relationships without the emotional attachment, you really get to share a lot and make a unique connection with someone new on a date without having to stay on the surface, which I don't think anybody really enjoys staying on the surface. And then finally, this is courtesy of an esteemed expert whose name shall be left out of this, who says, tell a man that you're looking for marriage and kids on the first date. No, you don't. That's really, really awkward. It's almost the equivalent of a guy saying, so are we going to get laid tonight or what on the date? He may be in the back of his mind, but you don't come out and say that. So there's nothing wrong with wanting marriage and kids. There's nothing wrong with wanting to waste your time, but you're not here to interview a guy on the date. You're not here to figure out the entire future. You're here to have fun, make a connection, be comfortable, laugh a little bit, and the future will bear itself out. And the truth is, if a guy wants to get married, it usually says so in his profile, and he'll usually bring it up on his own without you having to interview him. But the second you interview him, the second you have an agenda, suddenly it sucks all the fun out of the date, right? You're not just here to get to know a new guy. You're here to assess whether he's the father of your children. Right? And that's an ineffective way of dating, even though the intention is pure. So never talk about, I want to get married, do you, just because you're trying to be direct. It's awkward, it's not effective, guys don't like it, and I would highly steer you in a different direction. Just treat him like the person who's sitting next to you on an airplane and just have a real conversation. Whew, that's a lot of bad dating advice to take in one place. I could probably go on, what I won't. I want to thank you for joining me on the Love You podcast. I want to thank you for being open to these ideas. My name is Marc Katz, dating coach for smart, strong, successful women. The next episode, I'm going to take this even further and talk about bad relationship advice that many experts pass off as good. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and go to www.evanmarkkatz. Give me your name and email address, and I will send you free dating and relationship advice twice a week until you are in the relationship of your dreams, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? I appreciate you. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next week.